I was just opening the mailbox in front of our house in Ridgefield Falls. He lunged forward, snatched the envelope, and slapped me, thinking another bruise would keep me silent. But that letter wasn't junk mail. It was the key to the safe that Hank Marlowe, my stepfather, had been hiding for years. From the moment my fingers touched the edge of that envelope, the power game in this house shifted sides, and this time, I'd let the law come knocking. My name is Tessa Quinn, and at 29, I thought I'd seen enough of Hank Marlowe's control games to last a lifetime. But that Tuesday afternoon in late March changed everything. I'd just gotten home from my job at Gray Line Compliance, where I spent my days ensuring companies followed federal regulations. Ironic, considering the lawlessness brewing in my own home. The spring air in Ridgefield Falls carried that familiar scent of freshly cut grass, mixed with diesel from the highway that bisected our small Midwestern town. Our house sat on Elm Street, a modest two-story colonial that my mother Lila had inherited from her parents. Or at least, that's what I'd always believed. The white paint was peeling in places, and the shutters needed fixing, details Hank constantly pointed out but never addressed, despite controlling every penny that came through our door. I reached for the mailbox, a simple act I'd done thousands of times. The metal door creaked open, revealing the usual stack of bills and flyers. But there, sandwiched between a credit card offer and the water bill, was a cream-colored envelope with embossed lettering, Breyer & Cole, LLP. My name was typed precisely on the front, Ms. Tessa Quinn. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Hank's voice cut through the afternoon quiet like a rusty blade. He must have been watching from the living room window, his favorite perch for monitoring the neighborhood and, apparently, the mail delivery. Before I could answer, he was there, 6'2" of barely contained rage wrapped in a mechanic's uniform from the shop where he worked. His hand shot out, grabbing for the legal envelope. "That's mine," I said, pulling back instinctively. The slap came fast and hard, snapping my head to the side. My cheek burned, and I tasted copper where my teeth had cut the inside of my mouth. The envelope fell from my hands, and Hank snatched it up, his thick fingers already working at the sealed flap. "Nothing in this house is yours," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You live under my roof. You follow my rules." Through the front window, I caught a glimpse of my mother. Lila stood frozen in the hallway, her hands wringing the dish towel she'd been holding. Our eyes met for a split second before she turned away, retreating to the kitchen like she always did when Hank's temper flared. I pressed my hand to my throbbing cheek, watching as Hank examined the envelope. His expression shifted from anger to something else. Was it fear? He stuffed the letter into his pocket without opening it. "You don't touch the mail," he said. "Ever. That's my job in this house. You understand me?" I nodded, not trusting my voice, but my mind was racing. In all the years since he'd married my mother, 7 long years, I'd never seen him react quite like this to a piece of mail. Sure, he was controlling about money, kept all the passwords, insisted on managing every account, but this was different. "Get inside," he ordered, "and put some ice on that face. Tell anyone you walked into a door." As I climbed the porch steps, I memorized everything I could about that envelope. The law firm's name, Breyer & Cole, LLP. The return address included a P.O. box. I caught the numbers 4782. The postmark was local, from our own zip code. Inside, the house smelled like pot roast, Mom's Tuesday tradition. I could hear her in the kitchen, banging pots louder than necessary, her way of drowning out what had just happened. Hank's heavy footsteps headed toward his home office, the one room in the house where neither Mom nor I were allowed. I didn't go for ice. Instead, I went to my room and opened my laptop, typing the law firm's name into the search bar with trembling fingers. Breyer & Cole specialized in estate planning, probate, and trust administration. Estate planning, probate, trusts. Why would they be writing to me? The throbbing in my cheek had dulled to a persistent ache, but something else was building inside me. A cold, calculated fury. Hank had made a mistake. In his rage, he'd shown me that envelope, revealed that something important was being kept from me. And I was a compliance specialist. I knew how to follow paper trails, how to uncover what people tried to hide. More importantly, I knew that intercepting someone else's mail was a federal offense. The game had just changed, and Hank Marlowe didn't even know it yet. The next morning at Grayline Compliance, I couldn't focus on the stack of regulatory documents waiting for review. My cheek had turned an ugly purple-yellow, and despite the concealer I'd layered on, Noah Avery noticed immediately when he stopped by my cubicle. "Jesus, Tessa, what happened?" Noah worked in our legal department, a sharp-eyed attorney who'd helped me understand complex compliance issues more times than I could count. We developed a friendship over coffee breaks and shared frustrations with bureaucratic red tape. "Walked into a door," I said, the lie tasting bitter. He studied me for a long moment, then pulled up a chair. "Right, and I'm the Queen of England." His voice dropped. "You know, if you need help." "Actually," I interrupted, making a decision, "I do need help, but not the kind you're thinking. What do you know about mail tampering laws?" Noah's eyebrows rose. "That's federal territory. Why?" I told him about the letter from Breyer and Cole, careful to frame it as a hypothetical. His expression grew increasingly serious as I described someone potentially intercepting legal correspondence. "First off," he said, pulling out his phone, "sign up for USPS Informed Delivery. It's free. They'll email you photos of mail coming to your address each day. That way you'll know what's supposed to be there." He showed me the app on his phone. As for tampering, we're talking about 18 U.S.C. Section 1708. Theft or receipt of stolen mail is a federal offense, up to 5 years in prison. Even for family members living at the same address? The law doesn't make exceptions for domestic situations. Mail addressed to you is legally yours the moment it enters the postal system. He paused. "Tessa, if someone's taking your mail, especially legal documents, you need to document everything." After Noah left, I immediately signed up for informed delivery using my work computer. Then I searched for Breyer and Cole's phone number. My hands shook as I dialed from my cell phone during lunch. Sitting in my car in the parking lot. "Breyer and Cole, how may I direct your call?" "This is Tessa Quinn. I believe your office sent me a letter, but I haven't received it. Could you tell me what it's regarding?" "One moment, please." The hold music was classical, serious. When she returned, her voice was careful. "Ms. Quinn, I'm transferring you to Mr. David Cole directly." My stomach tightened. Senior partners didn't typically handle routine matters. "Ms. Quinn?" The voice was older, professional. "I'm glad you called. We've been trying to reach you for several months regarding your grandfather's estate." "My grandfather?" My maternal grandfather had passed away 3 years ago. A quiet man who'd worked for the Postal Service for 40 years. "Harold Brennan. I'm showing here that we've sent 3 letters to your Elm Street address. The estate has been in probate, but there are time-sensitive matters regarding a trust that becomes accessible on your 30th birthday, which I see is in 6 months. 3 letters." My mouth went dry. "Mr. Cole, I've only just become aware of your correspondence. Is it possible someone else might have responded on my behalf?" A pause. "That would be highly irregular. Any communication regarding the estate would require your personal signature, notarized. Has your living situation changed? Should we update your address?" "No, I'm still at the same address. Could you tell me more about the trust?" "I'd prefer to discuss the details in person. Ms. Quinn, the estate includes financial assets and, well, there's real property involved. Your grandfather was very specific about his wishes. Could you come to our office?" We scheduled an appointment for the following afternoon. Before hanging up, I asked, "Mr. Cole, would it be possible to get copies of the previous letters you sent?" "Of course. I'll have my assistant prepare them. Ms. Quinn, if there's been any interference with your mail, I strongly suggest you take appropriate steps. Estate matters are time-sensitive, and your grandfather went to great lengths to ensure his wishes were carried out." That evening, I arrived home to find Hank's truck already in the driveway. Through the window, I could see him in his office, hunched over his desk, Mom was in the kitchen, as always. "How was your day, honey?" she asked without looking up from the vegetables she was chopping. "Fine," I said, then casually added, "Hey, Mom, have you noticed any issues with our mail delivery? Sometimes I feel like things go missing." Her knife paused for just a second. "Hank handles all that. He says it's easier if one person manages the household papers. Less confusion." "Right." I watched her resume chopping, her movements precise and mechanical. "Mom, when Grandpa died, did he leave anything specifically for me?" This time the knife stopped completely. She turned, and I saw something in her eyes. Guilt? Fear? "Your grandfather didn't have much, sweetheart. The funeral costs took most of it." Another lie. I could see it in the way she couldn't hold my gaze, the way her fingers whitened around the knife handle. "Of course," I said softly. "I was just wondering." As I headed upstairs, I heard Hank's office door open. He appeared at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at me with those cold gray eyes. "Asking questions about money that isn't yours. Tessa?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "Seems like you didn't learn your lesson yesterday." "Just making conversation with Mom," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Conversation," he smiled, and it was all teeth. "Be careful what kind of conversations you have. Words can be dangerous things." I continued up the stairs, feeling his stare burning into my back. In my room, I locked the door and opened my laptop. Tomorrow, I'd learn exactly what Hank had been hiding, and I'd start building a case that would bring his house of cards crashing down. The bruise on my cheek throbbed as I smiled. He thought he'd won by taking that letter, by trying to intimidate me into silence. He had no idea what was coming. The law offices of Breyer & Cole occupied the third floor of a restored Victorian building in downtown Ridgefield Falls. I told my supervisor I had a dental appointment and left work early, my stomach churning with anticipation and dread. David Cole was exactly what I'd pictured. Silver-haired, immaculate suit, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. His office smelled of leather and old books. He gestured to a chair across from his massive oak desk, where a file folder lay open. "Ms. Quinn, thank you for coming. Before we begin, I need to verify your identity." After checking my driver's license, he pulled out several documents. "These are copies of the letters we sent. The first was mailed 6 months ago." I scanned them quickly, each one urgent, each one requesting immediate contact regarding my grandfather's estate. My hands clenched in my lap. "Mr. Cole, I never received any of these. This is the first I'm hearing about an inheritance." His expression grew troubled. "That's deeply concerning. Your grandfather was very specific about ensuring you received your inheritance when you turned 30. He established a trust 15 years ago, updating it regularly until his death." "What kind of inheritance are we talking about?" He adjusted his glasses. "The trust contains approximately $47,000 in cash assets, but more significantly, there's a property, a house at 438 North Willow Street. Your grandfather lived there before moving to the assisted living facility. He'd paid it off completely and specifically wanted it to go to you." A house? My grandfather had left me a house. I thought of our cramped living situation, of Hank lording over every square inch of Mom's inherited home. "There's more," Mr. Cole continued. "Your grandfather included a personal letter for you in the trust documents. He seemed concerned about your living situation. He mentioned that he wanted to ensure you had independence, a place of your own that no one could take from you." He handed me an envelope, my name written in Grandpa Harold's shaky handwriting. Inside, his words made my eyes burn. "My dear Tessa, a young woman should have her own space, her own life. Don't let anyone open your mail or make your choices for you. This house is yours alone. Love, Grandpa." "Mr. Cole," I said slowly, "what would happen if someone had been intercepting these letters? Maybe even responding to them?" His face darkened. "That would be mail fraud, identity theft, potentially elder abuse if they'd tried to manipulate the estate. Do you have reason to believe—" "I need to ask you something in confidence. Has anyone else inquired about this estate?" Anyone claiming to represent me? He flipped through his papers, then stopped. Actually, yes, about 4 months ago. We received a call from someone claiming to be your attorney, a man, wouldn't give his name, asking about the timeline for disbursement and whether the property could be sold before the trust matured. My blood ran cold. What did you tell him? Nothing. We found it suspicious and informed him all communication needed to go through you directly. We sent another letter after that call, certified mail, requiring signature. Certified mail. That would have required my signature specifically. No wonder Hank had been watching the mailbox like a hawk. Is there any way to trace what happened to that certified letter? With the tracking number, yes. He found it in the file and wrote it down for me. The USPS website shows it was delivered and signed for 3 months ago. Can you see who signed? He typed into his computer, then turned the screen toward me. There it was. A signature that was supposed to be mine, but wasn't even close. Someone had signed T. Quinn in blocky masculine handwriting. Mr. Cole, my stepfather has been taking my mail. I believe he's been trying to find a way to access this inheritance without my knowledge. What are my options? He leaned back, steepling his fingers. First, we need to secure the estate immediately. I can file paperwork today to ensure no one else can make claims on it. Second, you should file a complaint with the postal inspector. Mail theft is a federal crime. Third, consider whether there might be other financial fraud occurring. What do you mean? If someone's bold enough to intercept legal mail and forge signatures, they might be doing more. Do you have access to your credit reports? Bank statements? I thought of Hank controlling all the household finances, of Mom too frightened to question anything. Not readily. He manages all of that. I see. Mr. Cole's voice was grim. Ms. Quinn, I'm going to give you the name of a colleague who specializes in financial crimes and domestic situations. In the meantime, I can execute the trust documents to transfer the house to your name immediately. Your 30th birthday requirement was for the cash assets only. The house can be yours today. My heart raced. He can't contest it? Not legally. Your grandfather was of sound mind. The will was properly executed, and you're the sole beneficiary. However, he paused meaningfully. I'd suggest discretion until everything is finalized. An hour later, I left with a folder of documents, the deed to a house I'd never seen, and a plan forming in my mind. But first, I needed more evidence. I drove to the North Willow Street address. The house was small but well-maintained, a 1950s bungalow with a front porch and mature oak trees. The elderly neighbor was watering his lawn and waved. You looking at the Brennan place? He called out. Yes, I said, getting out of my car. I'm Harold's granddaughter, Tessa. His face lit up. Harold talked about you all the time. Said you were the only family worth a damn. Pardon my language. He was so proud when you got that compliance job. Said you'd know how to handle things properly when the time came. When the time came, my grandfather had known. Somehow. He'd known I'd need this. Has anyone else been by to look at the house recently? I asked. Funny you should ask. Few months back, some fellow came by with a clipboard. Said he was from a property management company. Marlowe something? Asked all sorts of questions about the house value. Whether Harold had any liens on it. I told him to get lost. Harold never mentioned any property company. Marlowe. My stomach turned. Hank's last name on a property company. I thanked the neighbor and sat in my car, adding this to my growing list of evidence. Then I checked my phone. The informed delivery email had arrived. Today's mail included 2 credit card offers, a utility bill, and, I zoomed in on the image, another letter from a bank I didn't recognize, addressed to me. When I got home that evening, I checked the mailbox. The credit card offers were there. The utility bill was there. The bank letter was gone. I smiled grimly and took photos of everything, including the empty mailbox. Hank had just made another federal mistake, and this time, I had proof. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a methodical detective in my own home. Noah had connected me with a postal inspector named Sarah Chen Martinez, who took my complaint seriously after I showed her the informed delivery screenshots versus what actually appeared in our mailbox. "We see this more than you'd think," she said during our meeting at the federal building. "Domestic mail theft often goes unreported, but you've done excellent documentation. I need you to do something for me. Send yourself a certified letter with signature required. Put something harmless inside, but mark the envelope in a way only you'd recognize. We'll track exactly what happens." I also met with the financial crimes attorney Mr. Cole had recommended. Janet Brooks operated out of a small office but came highly recommended for untangling domestic financial abuse. When I explained my situation, she immediately pulled my credit report. "3 credit cards opened in your name that you didn't know about," she said, turning her laptop screen toward me. "All with Ridgefield Falls P.O. boxes as mailing addresses. And look here, someone's been making minimum payments to keep them active." "P.O. boxes? Let me guess, you've never rented a P.O. box?" "Never." She pulled up another screen. "There's also a HELOC, home equity line of credit, taken out on your mother's house 6 months ago. The signature on the application." She zoomed in. "Does this look like your mother's handwriting?" It didn't. It was the same blocky writing I'd seen on the certified mail receipt. "Can we trace the P.O. boxes?" "With a subpoena, yes, but I have a faster idea." Janet leaned forward. "You said your stepfather runs some kind of property company?" "The neighbor at my grandfather's house mentioned someone from Marlowe Property Services asking questions." Her fingers flew over the keyboard. "Here we go. Marlowe Property Services, LLC, registered 4 years ago, principal address is a P.O. box, same post office branch as your mystery credit cards." "Is that legal?" "The LLC is legal. Using it to commit fraud isn't. And if he's commingling funds from that HOA, he manages with his personal business." She smiled. "That's a federal offense, too." By week 3, I had my plan in motion. The certified letter I'd sent myself arrived on a Tuesday. I knew because Sarah had given me the tracking information. I'd installed a small security camera in a decorative birdhouse facing our mailbox, connected to my phone. At 2:47 p.m., I watched from my office as the mail truck departed. At 3:15 p.m., Hank's truck pulled into the driveway, hours earlier than his usual time. He went straight to the mailbox, pulled out the contents, and studied the certified mail notice. Instead of leaving it for me, he pocketed it. That evening, I came home to find him in an unusually good mood. "No mail today," he announced when I walked in, not looking up from his beer. "Postal service isn't what it used to be." "That's strange," I said mildly. "The neighbors said their mail came." His eyes narrowed slightly, but he just shrugged. "Nothing important ever comes anyway." 2 days later, I had the security footage of him signing for my certified letter at the post office. Sarah Chen Martinez was pleased. "This is excellent evidence. We're building a solid case for mail theft and fraud, but I want to catch him with more than just one letter. Keep monitoring." Meanwhile, Janet Brooks had uncovered more. The HOA account he manages is missing about $30,000. Small withdrawals over time, transferred to, surprise, Marlowe Property Services. He's been using HOA funds to pay the minimums on those credit cards in your name. Why use credit in my name if he's stealing from the HOA? Credit leaves a trail that leads to you, not him. If anyone investigated, you'd look like the thief. He's been setting you up as a fall guy. That night, Mom knocked on my bedroom door, a rarity. "Tessa, honey, is everything okay? You've seemed different lately." I studied her worn face, the nervous way she twisted her wedding ring. "Mom, when was the last time you saw a bank statement for your house?" "Hank handles all that. He says it's easier." "Mom," I took her hands. "He took out a loan against your house, without your knowledge. That's fraud." Her face went white. "No, he wouldn't. He said the house was protected, that we'd never—" "I've seen the documents. Your signature is forged." She sank onto my bed, suddenly looking every one of her 57 years. I suspected little things, mail disappearing, Him getting nervous when I'd answer the door for deliveries. But I thought I was being paranoid. You weren't, Mom. I need you to decide. Are you with him or with me? Because what's coming next is going to destroy him. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, he wasn't always like this. When we first married, he was charming, helpful. But the control, the anger, it got worse after your grandfather died, like he was waiting for something. He was waiting for my inheritance. Her head snapped up. What inheritance? I told her everything, about the house, the trust, the intercepted letters. With each word, her face grew harder. That bastard, she whispered, the first time I'd ever heard her swear. Your grandfather loved you so much. He'd be rolling in his grave knowing Hank tried to steal from you. Will you help me? She squeezed my hands. What do you need? Access to his office, just once. I need to photograph any documents related to the PO boxes, the property company, anything about my inheritance or the HOA. Sunday, she said immediately. He goes to his brother's to watch football every Sunday. Drinks enough that he sleeps in the recliner after. We'll have hours. Mom, if he finds out, then it's time I stopped being afraid. She stood, straightening her shoulders. Your father would be ashamed of how I've let this man treat us. No more. As she left my room, I felt a surge of hope. The trap was set. The evidence mounting. Hank thought he'd imprisoned us with fear and financial control. He was about to learn what happened when you stole from a compliance specialist who knew federal law and had the fury of 3 stolen years driving her forward. Sunday couldn't come fast enough. Sunday arrived with spring thunderstorms. Perfect cover for our plan. Hank left at noon, grumbling about the weather but unwilling to miss his weekly ritual. Mom and I waited 20 minutes before approaching his office door. I've never seen him lock it, Mom said, trying the handle. It opened easily. Hank's arrogance assuming we'd never dare enter his domain. The office was meticulously organized, filing cabinets labeled by year, a desktop computer humming quietly. A small safe sat in the corner, the kind you'd buy at an office supply store. On his desk, a sticky note with passwords. The man who controlled our digital lives kept his own security laughably weak. Start with the filing cabinets, I told Mom, pulling on latex gloves I'd brought. Look for anything about property, PO, boxes, or the HOA. I'll check the computer. His email revealed everything. Correspondence with someone about the Brennan property acquisition, dated 2 months before Grandpa died. He'd been planning this even while my grandfather was alive. There were exchanges with a shady real estate attorney about expediting probate claims and alternative documentation for property transfer. Tessa, Mom's voice was sharp. Look at this. She held a folder marked TQ Trust. Inside were photocopies of the letters from Breyer and Cole. He'd opened them, scanned them, and filed them. But more damning were his handwritten notes. Trust matures on 30th birthday, October 15th, 2025. Need property transfer complete before this date. Possible to contest if beneficiary deemed unfit? Research guardianship laws. Guardianship. He'd been researching how to have me declared incompetent. That son of a... I caught myself. Keep looking. We need everything. The safe was locked, but the combination was written on another sticky note hidden under his keyboard. His hubris would be his downfall. Inside, we found the smoking gun, the original trust documents from Breyer and Cole. Each one carefully opened and resealed. The deed to Grandpa's house with a forged transfer document, half completed, attempting to move ownership to Marlowe Property Services, bank statements for accounts I'd never seen, all in my name, all showing regular transfers to his business. But the real shock was at the bottom, a life insurance policy on my mother, taken out 2 years ago, with Hank as sole beneficiary, worth $500,000. Mom's face went gray when she saw it. I never signed this. I photographed everything, using my phone to create a digital trail. Then I noticed something else. A small leather journal tucked behind the insurance papers. Hank's private records. detailing every cent he'd siphoned, every document he'd forged, every plan he'd made. He'd documented his own crimes, probably to keep track of his elaborate deceptions. One entry from last month chilled me. TQ getting suspicious. May need to escalate. Accident? Makes property transfer cleaner if she's gone. Research options. We're leaving, I told Mom. Pack a bag. We're not staying here tonight. But he'll know. He's planning to kill me, Mom. Maybe you too. I showed her the journal entry. We have enough evidence. It's time. We carefully returned everything to its exact position. Then Mom threw clothes into a suitcase while I made calls. Janet Brooks answered on the second ring. I have everything, I told her, including evidence of planned violence. What's our next move? Get somewhere safe. I'll contact the FBI. This has crossed into federal territory with the mail fraud, wire fraud, and now conspiracy. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? We were pulling out of the driveway when my phone rang. Hank. Where's your mother? His voice was slurred but suspicious. Grocery shopping, I lied smoothly. I'm heading to work to catch up on some files. On a Sunday? Big audit tomorrow. You know how it is. He grunted and hung up. Mom and I drove in tense silence to Janet's office, where Sarah Chen Martinez was already waiting with 2 FBI agents. The next 3 hours were a blur of statements, evidence review, and strategic planning. The agents were particularly interested in the life insurance policy and the journal entries about causing an accident. We have enough for arrest warrants, one agent said. But we want to catch him in the act. Ms. Quinn, would you be willing to wear a wire? No, Janet interrupted. Too dangerous given the violence threats. We have sufficient evidence without putting my client at risk. Sarah Chen Martinez pulled up something on her laptop. There's another way. Mr. Marlowe is scheduled to pick up a registered letter tomorrow at the post office. I can see it in our system. It's from the HOA board. We could arrest him there, in public, away from any weapons he might have at home. What about Mom? I asked. We'll place her in protective custody tonight, the FBI agent assured me. You too, if you prefer. I shook my head. I have one more thing to do. That evening, I sat in my grandfather's house, my house, for the first time. The neighbor had kept a spare key, happy to give it to Harold's granddaughter. The place still smelled faintly of his pipe tobacco. In his bedroom, I found photo albums, pictures of me at various ages, all carefully labeled in his handwriting. On his desk was a letter addressed to me, dated just a month before he died. My dearest Tessa, if you're reading this in my house, then my plan worked. I knew what kind of man your mother married. I saw the bruises you tried to hide, heard the fear in your voice, but I also saw your strength. This house is more than property. It's freedom. No one can control you here. No one can take it from you. I made sure of that. Live freely. My brave girl. All my love, Grandpa. I held the letter to my chest and cried. For him. For the years lost. For the freedom gained. Tomorrow, Hank would be arrested. The house of cards would collapse, and I would finally be free. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. I'm safe. The agents are kind. I'm proud of you. Sweetheart, Dad would be too. I looked around my grandfather's, my, living room and smiled through my tears. The safe was finally open, and Hank Marlowe was about to learn what happened when you tried to steal from someone who had federal law on her side. Monday evening arrived with deceptive calm. The FBI agents had decided against the post office arrest after reviewing more evidence. They wanted to search the house while Hank was present, hoping he might panic and reveal additional hidden documents. I'd spent the day at my new house with Mom, but Hank didn't know that. As far as he was concerned, we'd returned home Sunday night like always. You need to act normal. Agent Rivera had coached me. He's going to want to have a family meeting. Predators often do this when they sense their control slipping. Don't confront him, but don't back down either. We'll be listening and ready. I was wearing a wire after all, though not for evidence, for safety. The FBI van was parked 2 blocks away, monitoring everything. Mom and I returned to Elm Street at 6 o'clock. Hank's truck was in the driveway, and every light in the house was on. My stomach clenched. "Remember," I whispered to Mom, "act natural. We don't know anything." Hank was waiting in the dining room, an unusual formality. He'd set 3 places at the table, complete with the good china Mom only used for holidays. His face was calm, but his knuckles were white as he gripped his beer bottle. "Sit," he commanded. "We need to have a conversation about trust in this family." Mom and I exchanged glances and sat. I kept my phone in my pocket, recording everything as backup to the wire. "I've been thinking," Hank began, his voice dangerously quiet, "about ungrateful people. People who bite the hand that feeds them. People who sneak around, asking questions they have no business asking." "Hank," Mom started. "Shut up, Lila." He didn't even look at her. His gray eyes were fixed on me. "You think you're smart, don't you, Tessa? With your college degree and your compliance job, think you know how the world works?" "I know how mail fraud works," I said quietly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Hank's face went very still. "Excuse me?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out printed screenshots from the Informed Delivery app. Every piece of mail that's supposed to come to this house, including the ones that mysteriously disappear, including letters from law firms about my inheritance. His jaw tightened. "You don't have an inheritance. Your grandfather died broke." "No, he didn't. He left me his house and a trust fund. You've known about it for months, years, actually." I pulled out another paper, a photocopy of his own notes from his office, the ones about making me seem unfit. "You've been planning this since before he died." Hank stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You went into my office." "The question is," I continued, staying seated, keeping my voice level, "what were you planning to do about it? Were you going to forge more documents? Have me declared incompetent? Or were you going with the accident option?" His face flushed dark red. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "I have your journal. Hank, your handwritten notes about making the property transfer cleaner if I was gone. Pretty detailed planning for someone who just wants to manage the family finances." He lunged toward me, but Mom stood up, stepping between us. "Don't you touch her." "Get out of my way, Lila." "No." Her voice was stronger than I'd heard it in years. "I've looked the other way too long. You stole from my daughter. You stole from me. You took out loans in our names, forged our signatures." "Everything I did was for this family," Hank roared. "Do you have any idea what it costs to maintain this lifestyle? To keep you two ungrateful?" "What lifestyle?" I stood now too. "The one where you control every penny? Where you steal from an HOA? Where you plan to kill your stepdaughter for a house?" He reached into his pocket, and for a terrifying moment, I thought he had a weapon. Instead, he pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my lawyer. You're both delusional. I'll have you both committed. And then we'll see who—" The doorbell rang. We all froze. Hank's eyes darted between us and the door. "Who is that?" he demanded. "I don't know," I said truthfully. "The FBI wasn't supposed to move until I gave a distress signal." The doorbell rang again, followed by loud knocking. "Mr. Marlowe? This is Patricia Wells from the Maple Crest HOA board. We need to speak with you immediately." Hank's face went pale. The HOA president wasn't supposed to be part of this. "Don't answer it," he said. More knocking. "Mr. Marlowe? We know you're home. We've discovered significant discrepancies in the association accounts. If you don't open this door, we'll be forced to involve the authorities." "You called them," Hank snarled at me. "You stupid little—" "Actually," I said, "I didn't. Turns out when you steal $30,000 from your neighbors, they notice eventually." He grabbed his keys from the counter. "We're not done here." "Yes," I said firmly. "We are—" He shoved past Mom toward the back door, probably planning to get to his truck and run. But as he yanked open the door, FBI agents were waiting. "Hank Marlowe, you're under arrest for mail fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit murder. The last part made him stop struggling. Murder? I never… You wrote extensive notes about causing a fatal accident, Agent Rivera said, cuffing him. We take that very seriously. As they led him away, he turned back to look at me. This is your fault. You couldn't just leave well enough alone. No, I said, standing in the doorway with Mom's arm around me. I couldn't. Grandpa taught me better than that. The house erupted in controlled chaos. Agents executing search warrants, cataloging evidence, photographing everything. Patricia Wells from the HOA turned out to be legitimately there. Having discovered the theft independently after a routine audit, she'd been trying to reach Hank all day. We'll be pressing full charges, she assured me. Every penny will be recovered. By midnight, it was over. The house felt different without Hank's oppressive presence. Lighter. Somehow. Mom and I sat at the kitchen table, drinking tea from her good china. I should have protected you better, she said quietly. We protected each other, I corrected. That's what matters. My phone buzzed. Janet Brooks texting. Bail denied due to flight risk and threats of violence. He's not getting out anytime soon. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start recovering everything he stole. I showed Mom the message. She smiled. A real smile. The kind I hadn't seen in years. What will you do now? She asked. First, I'm going to sleep in my own house, Grandpa's house. Then tomorrow, I'm going to start living the life he wanted me to have. Free and clear. What about this house? I squeezed her hand. Once we clear the fraudulent loan, it's yours again. Really yours. No one else's name on the deed. No one else controlling your life. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Your father would be so proud of you. So would your grandfather. As I gathered my things to leave for my real home, I paused at the mailbox, the same one where this all started. Tomorrow, my mail would come to a different address, one where no one would steal it, hide it, or use it against me. The game was over, and for the first time in years, I had won. The Alder County Courthouse stood like a fortress of justice in downtown Ridgefield Falls. 3 weeks had passed since Hank's arrest, and the legal machinery had been grinding steadily forward. I sat in the courtroom's front row with Mom and Janet Brooks, watching as the system I'd studied and worked within for years finally delivered its verdict on the man who'd terrorized our lives. All rise, the bailiff announced, the Honorable Judge Catherine Morrison presiding. Judge Morrison, a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes, took her seat and reviewed the papers before her. This was the hearing for the temporary restraining order and asset freeze. Criminal charges would come later, but we needed immediate protection for the property and finances. I've reviewed the extensive evidence submitted in this case, Judge Morrison began. Mr. Marlowe, you're represented by counsel? Hank sat at the defendant's table in his orange jumpsuit, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. His public defender, looking harried, stood. Yes, Your Honor. Let's address the restraining order first. Ms. Quinn? Janet stood, guiding me to the plaintiff's table. Your Honor, we're requesting a comprehensive protective order preventing Mr. Marlowe from coming within 500 feet of my client, her mother Lila Marlowe, and the properties at both Elm Street and North Willow Street. On what grounds? Documented threats of violence, Your Honor. Janet presented the journal entries. Mr. Marlowe wrote extensive notes about causing a, quote, accident to make property transfer cleaner, combined with the physical assault that initiated this investigation. Alleged assault, Hank's lawyer interrupted. I have photos of the bruising and a witness, I said quietly. My mother saw him strike me. Judge Morrison's expression hardened. I've seen the evidence, Counselor. Your client documented his own conspiracy to commit fraud and potentially murder. The restraining order is granted. Mr. Marlowe, you are hereby prohibited from any contact with the plaintiffs or their properties. Now, the judge continued, regarding the financial matters, I have here evidence of systematic mail theft, identity fraud, and embezzlement from the Maple Crest Homeowners Association. Mr. Marlowe, did you open credit accounts in Ms. Quinn's name without her knowledge? Hank whispered urgently to his lawyer, who stood. My client exercises his Fifth Amendment rights. I see. And did he forge signatures on a home equity loan application for property he didn't own? Fifth Amendment, Your Honor. Judge Morrison's lips thinned. Very well. Based on the overwhelming evidence presented, including Mr. Marlowe's own handwritten documentation of these crimes, I'm granting the emergency injunction. All accounts and properties connected to Marlowe Property Services, LLC, are hereby frozen pending criminal investigation. The fraudulent HELOC on the Elm Street property is suspended immediately pending investigation by the lending institution. Patricia Wells, the HOA president, was called next. She testified about the missing $30,000, presenting bank records showing systematic transfers to Marlowe Property Services. The association board has voted unanimously to pursue full restitution, she stated. We've also discovered Mr. Marlowe attempted to sell association property without board approval. Noted, Judge Morrison said. The HOA accounts are to be immediately transferred to new management. Mr. Marlowe's access is hereby revoked. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Janet presented the trust documents from Breyer and Cole. Your Honor, these documents establish that Harold Brennan's estate, including the property at 438 North Willow Street, was left in trust to Tessa Quinn. Mr. Marlowe intercepted multiple legal notices about this trust and attempted to forge documents to transfer the property to his company. David Cole himself had come to testify. Your Honor, in my 40 years of practice, I've rarely seen such blatant interference with estate execution. Ms. Quinn should have been living in her own home months ago. Instead, Mr. Marlowe created an elaborate scheme to steal her inheritance. Judge Morrison studied the documents, her frown deepening. Ms. Quinn, please approach. I stood on shaky legs and walked forward. How old are you? 29, Your Honor. I turned 30 in October. And you were never informed of this inheritance? No, Your Honor. My grandfather apparently tried to ensure I knew. He even left me a personal letter warning me not to let anyone open my mail. But every letter from the law firm was stolen. I see. She turned to Hank. Mr. Marlowe, you have violated not only state and federal law, but the sacred trust between family members. You systematically isolated and defrauded your stepdaughter while living in her mother's home. She turned back to me. The court recognizes Harold Brennan's last will and testament. The property at 438 North Willow Street is confirmed as belonging to Tessa Quinn, free and clear. Any fraudulent documents claiming otherwise are null and void. Furthermore, given the evidence of mail theft spanning several months, I'm ordering an audit of all financial accounts and transactions involving the plaintiff for the past 3 years. Your Honor, Hank's lawyer tried one last time. My client was simply trying to manage family finances. By stealing mail? Forging signatures? Planning accidents? Judge Morrison's voice was ice. Counselor, your client is fortunate he's only facing civil proceedings today. The criminal charges he's facing could result in decades in federal prison. She banged her gavel. The temporary orders are granted in full. Mr. Marlowe, you are prohibited from any financial transactions involving the plaintiff's names or properties. All stolen funds are to be returned immediately. Court is adjourned. As the bailiff led Hank away, he turned to look at us one last time. The man who'd controlled our lives through fear and financial manipulation was now powerless. His schemes exposed, his freedom gone. Outside the courthouse, Mom broke down crying, tears of relief, of freedom, of possibilities reopening after years of being closed. It's over, she whispered. It's really over. Janet smiled. The civil part is well underway. The criminal trial will take longer. But with his own journal as evidence, he's looking at serious time. Patricia Wells approached us on the courthouse steps. Ms. Quinn, I wanted to apologize. We should have audited the book sooner. If we had, maybe... You caught it when you could, I assured her. That's what matters. The association would like to offer you a position on the board, she said. We could use someone with your expertise in compliance. I thought about it. Helping protect my neighbors from future fraud? I'd be honored. As we walked to our cars, my phone buzzed. A text from Noah at work. Saw the news update. Federal prosecutors are taking the mail fraud case. Hank's going away for a long time. Celebration lunch? I showed Mom the message. She smiled. A real, free smile. You know what? Let's have that lunch at my house, my actual house, where I can open my own mail and make my own choices. Deal, I said. But dinner's at my place. Grandpa's dining table is waiting for family to gather around it again. The afternoon sun felt warmer somehow, knowing that somewhere in county lockup, Hank Marlowe was finally facing the consequences of his actions. Every forged signature, every stolen letter, every threat he'd made, they were all coming back to bury him. Justice, delivered not with violence but with paper trails and federal statutes. Exactly how a compliance specialist would handle it. Exactly how Grandpa knew I would. 6 months later, on my 30th birthday, I stood in the kitchen of my grandfather's house, my house, preparing dinner for a family gathering. The October sun streamed through windows I'd updated with Mom's help, illuminating the completely renovated space. We'd kept Grandpa's charm while adding modern touches, including a security system that no one else controlled. Need help with anything? Mom called from the dining room, where she was setting the table with Grandpa's good china. Just enjoying the moment, I replied, checking the pot roast, her recipe, finally made in a kitchen where she felt free to visit any time. The doorbell rang. Noah arrived first, carrying a birthday cake and legal champagne. The hero of compliance deserves only the best, he joked. Behind him came Janet Brooks and, surprisingly, David Cole. I hope you don't mind, Mr. Cole said. But your grandfather was a friend. I wanted to see what you've done with the place. He'd be so proud, he added after a tour. Touching the mantel where I'd placed Grandpa's photograph next to my parents' wedding picture. As we gathered for dinner, Mom raised her glass. A toast, she said, her voice strong. To second chances, to justice, and to my daughter, who saved us both. To Grandpa, I added, who made sure I'd have the tools to save myself. The doorbell rang again. Patricia Wells with an envelope. Sorry to intrude, but this came to the HOA office. It's addressed to you. My heart skipped, but Janet laughed. Open it. Hank's serving 15 to 20 years federal time. He can't hurt you anymore. Inside was a check. Full restitution from the HOA's insurance for my portion of the stolen funds, plus interest. The association voted unanimously, Patricia explained. We've also implemented new financial controls, thanks to your recommendations. After everyone left, Mom lingered. I've been thinking about selling the Elm Street house, she said. Too many bad memories. I found a nice condo near here. 1 level, easy maintenance, fresh start. That's wonderful, Mom. She handed me an envelope. I want you to have this. Inside was a check for half the expected sale price. Mom, no! It's what your father would have wanted. Besides, she smiled. I've been managing my own money for 6 months now. Did you know I'm actually quite good at it? We laughed. Free, easy laughter that had been absent for too long. Later that night, I sat on my front porch with Grandpa's letter, reading it one more time. A car drove slowly past. Someone lost. Probably, checking addresses, but I didn't tense up anymore. Hank was in federal prison. No parole possibility for at least 12 years. The security cameras I'd installed were just precaution now, not necessity. My phone buzzed, an email from Informed Delivery showing tomorrow's mail. A habit I'd kept. Just regular mail now. Bills I paid myself. A card from David Cole's office celebrating my 30th birthday and the full activation of my trust. Junk mail I could throw away without fear. I thought about the journey from that March afternoon when Hank slapped me for checking the mail to now, sitting on my own porch, watching the stars appear over my own roof. The bruises had faded, but the lessons remained. Paper trails, documentation, federal law. The tools of justice wielded not in anger but with precision. A text from Noah. Fox28 wants to interview you about mail theft awareness. Interested? I considered it. How many others were out there? Controlled by someone who insisted on handling the mail, who didn't know about informed delivery or their rights. Yes, I typed back. Let's help others open their own mail. Enderes. Inside, I locked up carefully. My house, my locks, my choices. Tomorrow, the trust fund would fully vest, providing enough cushion to help Mom with her fresh start and maybe take that vacation I'd been dreaming about. Somewhere warm, where no one controlled anything except how much sunscreen to apply. In the spare bedroom I'd converted to an office. I had a file box labeled Evidence, State Vi, Marlowe. Every document, every photo, every piece of the paper trail that had brought him down. Janet said I could dispose of it after appeals were exhausted, but I'd probably keep it. A reminder that paperwork and patience could defeat even the most controlling tyrant. But tonight, I didn't need reminders. I had my house, my freedom, and the knowledge that somewhere in Illinois Federal Correctional Institution, Hank Marlowe was learning what it felt like when someone else controlled your mail, your movements, your life. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd tried to steal my inheritance through forged documents. Instead, those very documents had sealed his fate. I closed my eyes and whispered to the night air. Thank you, Grandpa. Message received. The porch light clicked on. Motion activated, installed by my own hands. No more darkness unless I chose it. No more fear when checking the mail. No more stolen letters or forged signatures or threats disguised as family meetings. Just me, my home, and the freedom to open every piece of mail with my name on it. The game was over. I hadn't just won. I'd changed the rules entirely. And that was the best inheritance of all. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Leave a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your support means everything. And remember, never let anyone control your mail or your life.